Thanks for sticking with us. Like Jeff mentioned, let's talk some basketball. Keith Pompey, before the break, I mentioned to Jeff that signs of summer were 4th of July, the Phillies needing bullpen help, and Ben Simmons shooting in the summer videos appearing. And so all of those signs have occurred. The draft has now happened. And thank you for all the good coverage. Talk to us about what we saw.
Um, we saw the team that went the safe route. To me, I think that when you look at the 76ers and you have Edgecombe, he's a good pickup, but I feel like the 76ers took the safe route. Meaning, Ace Bailey, there were some red flags there. He didn't want to come. Um, you could have traded back, but you didn't know what you were going to get. When we look at the second round, you go out there and you get Broom, Janai Broom. He's a guy, you know what he's going to get. You're going to get from him, but there could have been some more athletic guys who had bigger upsides. But at the same time, you're looking at it like, well, are they going to pan out? Are they going to be able to play? So to me, when I look at the 76ers draft, um, they went the safe route. And when by going the safe route is good for them because you don't make mistakes. But when you look back at it, you ask yourself, how much did this team get better immediately? Like, quick, fast, and hurry. How much better did this team get? So that's the main questions I think moving forward.
Well, now you have, in my mind, 3 point guards. Does he fit with what they have, or is he a luxury with what they have?
I think right now he's a luxury with what they have. If that's and that's if it pans out. Because right now I know they say you got to go best player available. I think the best player available was Ace Bailey, but again we talked about the concerns. Um, but when we talk about luxury, it's because they what they fit means they need a power forward or they needed a forward. They needed a versatile forward who could play multiple positions, a guy who could do certain things. Now you look at it, the 76ers are still trying to sign Quentin Grimes. So when you talk about Edgecombe, VJ Edgecombe, that's a luxury because you have Tyrese Maxey, you have Jared McCain. You're trying to get Quentin Grimes, and you're trying to, and now you have Edgecombe. So we got four guys who can play. Some of them may have different styles of play, but ultimately they all play the same position.
And they're not the monsters. Like it's not like they have different heights and I mean they're not the tallest backcourt there with that too. I'll ask the Ace Bailey question. I'm the Rutgers guy. I don't think he could have played that worse or his team could have played that worse no matter what. He shows up in Utah and his agent's son is now on the coaching staff. I mean, just so many red flags. So obviously the talent and fitting the need could be there for the Sixers, though Jeff and I talked about it. He seemed like a longer term development project in terms of where he was on the development scale, being ready to play. Your thoughts on them deciding not to take Ace and how Ace's team handled this? Like, how was it seen? Maury said, they didn't come, whatever. How was it seen by what his team was doing around the NBA?
It's weird because it's not the first time that someone refused to work out for a team. I mean, when we think back to it, the Sixers drafted Jahlil Okafor. He didn't work out for him, right? Um, like Kristaps Porzingis, he made a big deal about not wanting to work out for the 76ers organization because at the time, he and Nerlens Noel had the same agent, and they felt like there were some promises made to Nerlens that they didn't come through with. So this isn't this isn't out of the ordinary, so to speak. But I think the big thing was that he agreed to come, was getting ready to come. 2 days beforehand, he backs out. And, you wonder like, dang, how did all this information come out? And I think, you got to say, what did the Sixers release it? Are they the ones who did it? Because it doesn't help the client or the player to release this type of information. Um, so I just feel like the plan wasn't something we haven't seen before, but the way it was executed was. So and when you talk about bad advice, yeah, I mean you can argue that he got bad advice. Um, but I'm here to tell you, I'm just going to say this about him, and I like Ace Bailey, and I like VJ Edgecombe too. Um, but the thing that stood out to me the day before the draft with media availability was, how you can tell how good someone is, how they are received by their peers.
Mhm.
So, you know, when Ace Bailey walked in the room, it was like the champ is here. I mean, literally, like these other players were like, whoa, there go Ace. Like, what's up, Ace? Like, he commanded the room. And it put me in mind. And again, I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but it kind of put me in mind of when Michael Jordan was at the top 75 not ceremony, but event, when he walked in the room, everyone was at attention. LeBron, D Wade, um, Kareem, Magic, all of them were like, that's Mike, that's Mike. Everybody was trying to like get his attention, so to speak. And they were in awe. The young guys were in awe. That's how it was when Ace Bailey walked in the room. It wasn't that way when Cooper Flagg walked in the room. It wasn't that way when Dylan Harper walked in the room. But when Ace walked in, he commanded the room. And to me, I was like, yo, he's going to be the one. I mean, like, if he gets it together, like everybody knows that he's going to be the headliner of the class. Like if he gets it together, right? So that was the one thing. But when we go back to it, yeah, it was poorly managed. Um, it but at the same time, you got to commend Danny Ainge for what he did, because Danny Ainge was the guy. I mean, that was a team that, let's think about it. I doubt if Ace Bailey, like of all the places, I doubt if Ace Bailey wanted to go to Salt Lake City, Utah, right? Of all the places, right? Um, the place that he really wanted to go to was
Washington, right?
Washington, and that's what Washington wanted him to go. Because you look at the way that, I mean, they're just complete opposite cities. And at the same time, Danny Ainge was like, nah, you're coming, son. I don't care what you do, what you say, you're a Utah Jazz. And I think that they got the best player, and they got who has the potential to become the best player in this draft class.
So here's my read of you from watching your face and listening to your words is it looks like you feel the Sixers made a mistake. And hear me out for a second, because it is what happened to Ace Bailey more about who he surrounded himself with than who Ace Bailey is. And the reason I'm saying that is if this were a real agent, if this were somebody who had gravitas or credibility that people knew league wide, and he said the same things that Omar Cooper said, they might, and said, you know what, we're not coming to a workout, those kinds of things. Would they have brushed it off more than Omar Cooper, who's suspect as somebody who should be representing these young adults? I mean he's not my understanding is he's not an NBA PA accredited agent. He hasn't represented anybody that you had ever heard of before. And as Jason said, now for some reason his son is a guest coach in the summer league. And so is it that a lot of these front office people said, we can't make this mistake because of who he's surrounding himself with. And Danny Ainge did what Danny Ainge does. And Danny Ainge filtered out the noise and said, I think I can figure out who the player is, and I can sideline Omar Cooper and anybody else if I need to.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's what it is. But I also think that a lot of people are not thinking back to last year, and it's also last year it only went one spot. I think not. I think the Washington Wizards had a lot to do with this, right? It was kind of like, look, I mean, and the Sixers got duped a little bit in a lot of other teams, but the Washington Wizards was like, look, dude, instead of the Wizards saying, hey, we're going to give the Sixers whatever they want to move up, the Wizards was like, dude, we're going to make sure that you're going to fall. Like, there was before the draft, somebody told me they weren't 100% sure, but there was a team that they believed flew to Atlanta and had a sit down meeting with Ace and at Omar Cooper's place, right? But no one could figure out who it was. Then after the draft, the guy told me, yeah, another source said, yeah, I'm hearing it was the Wizards, right? So what they did is, it's like, look, dude, be an ass. I mean, be an idiot, right? Do whatever you can, and you're going to slide to us. You're going to slide to us. And I feel like that's what really happened. And Danny Ainge, being Danny Ainge, was the one that's like, nah, I see what's going on here. Because people forget, Alex Sarr was supposed to go first overall the previous year. Well, Atlanta had Trae Young. Atlanta had other players. Washington said, bruh, you don't want to be there. You want to come here to us. It's going to be a clearer path for you to be a star. So then you look at the Ace Bailey situation, and they're like, why you want to go to Philadelphia? They have Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey. They're going to have you standing in the corner and being like you were Tobias Harris, right? So, um, so when that happens, it's kind of like, all right, let me do this. Let me try to get out of here. So I think that the way that the agent went about it seemed a little bizarre to some, right? Reckless, but you gotta think that they were just trying to do what was best for their client to get him to a place where he was going to be the man. Because he wasn't going to be the man in Charlotte. Because you already have Ball, right? You have some other players. Utah, again, people don't want to go to Utah. Like a guy like him didn't want to be in Utah because you hear about Utah, right?
Mhm.
So the best place for him would have been going to Washington. And I feel like the inexperience of the agent, another agent might have said, well, look, man, we're playing this a little crazy. We're just not going to work out for anyone. We're going to do whatever. But allegedly, they were calling teams and saying, don't draft me. And people figured out, well, who they're not called. Okay, so he called us. He called us. He backed out of the workout with the Sixers. Did he call Washington? Did he call Brooklyn? Nah, he didn't call them. Danny Ainge was like, okay, let me step in. I'm gonna get my guy.
So let me get this right. The Washington Wizards, their pitch to people is, we suck so bad that we have nobody, and you can come here and be a star. And this has been their strategy for the last 2 years.
Not only you
This-
can be a star,
this-
you can put up big numbers to earn your next contract. What I think
the
is a bigger
amazing thing
selling
is that the
point.
rate they're going, they can continue with this pitch for a very long time.
Exactly. See, here's the thing, and so look at John Wall, look at Bradley Beal. So here are two guys who went to that situation. While they were there, they became perennial all stars. In the NBA, with becoming perennial all stars regardless of how good the team is, it leads to lucrative contracts. It leads to supermax deals. So if you're a player and your agent, and like, let's keep it 100, like the agent's job is to get your client paid, get him in situations where he's going to be paid. So if you're Ace Bailey and they just throw the ball out at Washington, and then you get rookie of the year, and then we know rookie of the year doesn't mean like it's not like the MVP where your team has to win. Rookie of the year is like how many points did you have?
Right.
You know what I
We
mean? Like
literally
it,
we literally had this conversation with Zach Wheeler and the Phillies before you came on. Is his greatness being overshadowed by having other great starters around him? And Ace Bailey or players like him are going to go to a place where nobody will outshine you so that you can shine bright. So when your contract is up, you can maximize your wealth.
But it doesn't
exactly.
sound. But it doesn't sound like this is just Ace Bailey. It sounds like this is the Wizards.
It's the but it's also that's
It's
what
the league, though.
it's what they're selling. I mean, because
Is
you
the league okay
look
with
at
this?
I was going to say, Keith, is it the
I
Wizards?
think I honestly think that you have more players in the NBA who would rather play for a losing team to get their numbers up than will rather go to than rather sacrifice their game to win a championship in their prime.
Yeah.
And then because there's I'm not going to say who he is because there's a lot of people will figure it out and it make them look bad. But I remember I had a conversation several years ago with a guy in the 76ers locker room. And there was a team willing to trade for him who was the worst team in the league. Horrible team. And I said to him, "You're not considering going there, are you?"
Is it the Wizards?
But I said, "You're
Don't
not
get Keith in
considering going
trouble.
there." I said, "You're not considering going there." And he's like, "Why not?" I said, "But dude, they're trash." He's like, "Come on, man. You know the deal." And he gave me that look. And the deal was he knew he would go to that squad and he would become the man. They would pay him some money. And see, the thing is, you look at it. See, here's the thing, and I don't think a lot of people in the media or who vote. Now, I vote. When I vote, I carefully look through everything, right? But then there are times when you look at players and you're voting for players, and you're kind of like torn, and you go and you say, well, who has of the two, who has the best stats, and that becomes sometimes it can become who decides the deciding factor. And when that happens, typically the guy with the best stats is the guy playing for the worst team. And then, but you don't realize that guy will mess around and get third team All NBA. And what does that do? He'll receive a super max deal. Whereas a guy like Klay Thompson will sacrifice some of his individual skills, take a backseat to Steph Curry, win the championship, make big clutch shots. But since his stats wasn't as good as the other guy who played on a trash team, his stats wasn't as good as Bradley Beal's. Bradley Beal, we're bringing up Bradley because he was at Washington. Bradley Beal would make third team All NBA and get a super max deal.
Yeah. Are you chasing dollars or are you chasing rings?
Man, I'm telling you, people chasing dollars, dude. Like they feel like you can be that old dude at the end of the bench at your end of your career saying, okay, it's time for me to take a minimum so I can get a ring. I think,
Can
what's
we
that
can
ad?
we
I
just
gotta feed my family.
can we just the amount of money we're talking about here is so out of the realm of anybody that's listening to the show. You just used Klay Thompson as an example. Klay Thompson will likely be in the Hall of Fame now, right? He will
Got
be
lots of rings.
considered part of the best backcourt, one of the best backcourts ever. He made $282 million career earnings, and that doesn't include any endorsements. Isn't that the kind of career that you could be okay with instead of being somebody who plays on a team that wins 12 games a year. And like, how long can you motivate yourself to play a sport if if you know that you're not playing to win?
I mean, you know what? You can say that. I just think there's not a lot. I mean, great question. And but I feel like there are players in this league who take becoming a man over winning a title. That's just how it is. Like, Clay made the money. He was in Golden State where they were trying to make sure these guys were coming back. They they rode him until they basically felt like he couldn't do it anymore. Then they got rid of him. We know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain players who want to go to teams where they're going to be the man. And, and Ace Bailey isn't the only one. People look at situations to where you say, okay, okay, I could be the guy there. I hope I get drafted there because they're looking at it as their stardom. Now, you go to Philadelphia. Let's bring Philly back into it. You have Joel Embiid. No matter what Joel Embiid says, there are certain people thinking that he's going to be a ball hog, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have Tyrese Maxey, and you have Paul George. You look and you see how Paul George looks. Looks like he lost it, forgot how to play. You look at Tobias Harris, how he was quote unquote overhyped. You look at how James Harden, everybody thought he was shot, and now he's an NBA All Star again. So basically, you're like, do I want to be that third fiddle there? You know what I mean? Or do I want to go to a place where I'm gonna be the guy? And unfortunately, and I shouldn't say unfortunately, because these guys are doing this and they're making a lot of money doing it that way. But that's just how it is, man. Like, I mean, just how it is. I mean, and nothing in like, okay, Kevin Love, great player. When Kevin Love was in Minnesota, he was like a first team all NBA caliber type of guy. He goes to Cleveland. Yes, he wins a championship, but his playing alongside LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, his star power took a hit.
Yeah, he became more of a role player.
Became more of a role player. So those are the things. And it's just that's how people are thinking.
All
Because
right.
the problem is your money gets tied to individual accolades. You don't get paid for like, okay, your team won 72 games. Nah, you get paid for how many points you score.
No, your legacy is based on the number of rings you win. Your bank account and what you get paid for is based on your stats. And
True, and it's
that's
only
the
one team. There's 30 teams in the league, right?
yeah, and that's
So 29 of them don't win.
all
And they
right.
can
So
always say we didn't win.
we're this far into the interview, and I haven't asked you the only thing that really matters to whether this team's competitive. They can have as many guards as they want run around the court all day long. Is the big man going to be on there?
Yeah, I don't know. That's the big
I mean, I'm
question.
not asking you if he's going to be on there. But in terms of the Paul George, it seems like the attitude is run it back. These guys are going to be healthy. They'll be out there. Let's run it back and see what we could have gotten last year with a couple more pieces around them. Is that what I'm watching?
Yeah, that's all it is. I mean, you can't do anything else. I mean, you don't have the cap space. I mean, when you think about it, I know a lot of people are upset. I do think they should have kept Quentin Grimes.
Yabusele.
Yabusele, Gershon Yabusele.
I don't think Jeff liked me texting him,
But
not happy about that.
but but when you look at it, they just don't have the pieces. I mean, first of all, who's gonna the Sixers can say what they want about we're happy, we're this, we're that. But I had too many people telling me that they were trying to move Paul George, right? They keep trying to move him, but no one wants him right now. Like no one wants him. Some people think they could have made a move on draft night, but nobody wanted him. Um,
Is that true though? Is it true that nobody wanted him? Because it seems like every player that you sit there and say, not you, but that people say nobody wants him, somebody somehow always wants him. Look what Denver did. Nobody apparently wanted Michael Porter Jr. in
Brooklyn
that
did.
contract. Not only did Denver get rid of it, but Denver seems to have built themselves back up.
Yeah, but the difference is Paul George is older than Michael Porter Jr.
Right.
You know, Michael Porter Jr. may have less years on his deal. Paul George has 3 years, 160 plus million. So if you're a team and you're trying to win, and we're talking about getting in nice players, I mean, Paul George, that's a haul, man. Like that's a lot of money to take in. Like when you factor in, he has 51 million on this season, and then the next one. And so, yeah, you can have that timeline. Like for instance, when Oklahoma City Thunder, people are like, okay, look what OKC did. But I don't know if OKC would have did all that if if they felt like Al Horford wasn't a good player or he was banged up and shot because they knew that they could trade him. You're looking at Paul George, you don't know if you're going to be able to trade him. And the fact of the matter is, the red flag is the Sixers paid this guy all this money, and now they're trying to get rid of him that quickly. Well, do I want to be the team to take that? So I think that's where it is because with the second apron and everything now, you can screw yourself big time, and I think that's what the 76ers kind of sort of did, and other teams had wiggle room. Like, I mean, do you think a team is going to take Joel Embiid right now? I mean, you might say you could swing for the fences, and if it works, you got a great guy. But then you look at it and you factor in like, what's the odds? This guy has yet to complete a season where he was injury free in any season that he had. But yet and still, he has 4 years left on that deal. He has another year, and then he has the 3 years after that with the extension. So he's owed close to $250 million. Am I going to take that on? That's a lot of money. That's a huge chunk. I mean, that's just like saying, this dude is like, think about it. Joel Embiid and SGA, the next couple of years, they're going to be similar, right? But one dude just won MVP. He swept everything, led his team to the championship.
Won a title, Keith. Got past the
Yeah,
second round. Sorry, got to say it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, all that, and so, but then you have another dude who, at his prime, couldn't get the team out the second round, like you said. So, who are you going to invest? I mean, who do you feel comfortable with taking that? Because you get fired for making these deals.
Not if you're a Sixers leadership. I won't let you say that. I'll say that. I do want to ask you, but last one for me, and then whatever Jeff has. It seems like we're kind of at a changing of the guard moment, at least in the East. You've got the Boston kind of blowing it up with Tatum out next year and them making trades. You've got Halliburton out next season and them trading Turner. You've got Milwaukee buying out Lillard, who's out for the season, to try and keep Giannis. Your thoughts on what we're seeing around the East? The Knicks seem to finally have arrived at a head coach after some long search. Your thoughts about the Sixers' competition in the East?
It's weird because last year everybody thought the Sixers were going to win it all, right? Based off of what they did in the offseason.
Who thought that?
Not
I mean,
Jeff.
I'm saying,
Not me.
not, I mean, Mr. Ruckers did. He was doing cartwheels.
No. I said wake me when they get past the second round, but I thought
Okay.
they had a better chance. I
Okay.
was wrong.
All right. So I mean, to me, like, yeah, you're starting to see somewhat of the East being more wide open, and they have things. To me, we have to wait and see how they look on the court together, all these guys. But they are making major moves, and this is a prime opportunity for the Sixers. But at the same time, it's all contingent on what Joel Embiid does. And then when you look at this roster, we talk about the moves everyone's making. So basically, what they did is they swapped out Gershon Yabusele, Lonnie Walker, and Jared Butler for Trendon Watford, um, Janai Broom, and VJ Edgecombe. So when you look at it, you got two younger guys. Well, one in Broom, who's a little, older for NBA, but younger, and for NBA rookie. And then you have Edgecombe, a guy who potentially is going to be good, but he's not quite there yet to help you win a championship. And you lost a versatile big for a big who's a poor man's Kyle Anderson, right? Like, you know what I mean? He's not a shooter. Kyle Anderson can shoot, but this guy is not like known for his 3-point shooting and catch and shoots. He's known for making his wiggle room and good passing and getting to the rim. The problem I see right now is how many opportunities he's going to get to do that when Tyrese Maxey is going to be a ball dominant, when Joel Embiid is going to want the ball and demand triple teams, when Jared McCain can become ball dominant. So basically, you gave up or you lost a guy who is a quality shooter, 3-point shooter, who can get lost because everybody's focusing on other players, and you find him and he's wide open behind a 3-point line. But you replace him with a guy who, yes, looks good with the ball, but he needs the ball. He's not a guy who's going to roam around without it. So, no, I don't think the 76ers have improved comparable to other teams. But I know in Philadelphia, we tend to get excited when we see new faces. You know what I mean? We get excited. But to me, everything is contingent on what can Joel Embiid do and what can Paul George do. And if we see what we saw last year,
nothing's going to matter.
It's going to be another bad year. But the difference is they're not going to have their draft pick. That's a crazy thing.
People who may replay this, they might have missed something you said earlier, but I didn't. You mentioned you ticked off a bunch of players that have left here and been more successful again. Why is that?
I think it's the culture, it's the system. I think that it's the lack of sacrifice on certain players, meaning, when you're trying to win a championship, in everyone's individual game is supposed to take a hit, right?
Mhm.
Everyone's individual game is supposed to take a hit, and theirs didn't, right? So that's the problem. That one player didn't, and it is the problem. And I think that's why guys come here and they play well, but then they struggle. No, they struggle here, but when they go other places, they play well.
I just feel like the organization doesn't give him a chance. I mean, when
Yeah.
did Isaiah Joe really get a chance to show what Isaiah Joe is? Well, I mean, there's a list of players that never got the chance here to be what they are other places, and I do not understand it. But we will continue to have you back on, Keith Pompey. Uh, we'll have you on before the Rutgers season starts, so you can tell me what to look forward to with my Rutgers report. And then we'll also have you talk a little Sixers too. Thanks for always keeping us updated, man. Have a good summer.
Thanks for having me, fellas. I really appreciate being on the show.